Federico, I have so much to talk to you about today.
I know that this
Just
is
so
not.
much.
I know that this is not fun for you, um, but I think it's gonna be. It's one of those type of content where you feel bad in a good way for somebody else in terms of like technological problems because you're having technical issues. We're gonna talk about technical issues. Um, I'm sorry for you, John, but I promise you this is gonna be excellent content. So at least you got
Yes,
that going for you.
this is therapy. This is Federico's my shoulder to cry on today because not long before he said, "I'm ready to go," I certainly wasn't ready to go because I was considering switching back away from my Mac Studio to my MacBook Air
That poor computer. Poor
because
computer.
because if listeners may recall, the Mac Studio took a bolt of lightning or a surge from a bolt of lightning about, I don't know, it's been over a month ago now. It had its logic board replaced. It had the bus controller replaced, I was told. It had a lot of pieces inside replaced. The Ethernet card, that was replaced too. And it was humming along perfectly fine. And then this morning, I had to reboot my Mac a couple of times, which I'll get to in a minute. And, the keyboard and the trackpad weren't connecting to the Mac. And I was like, that's odd. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes you have to plug them in with the USB-C cable. It's just easier to get them to connect right away. You plug them in, make sure they're working, then unplug them, and it's totally fine. But today, that didn't happen. As soon as I unplugged them again, they didn't work. So I thought, that's really odd. So I went looking for the Bluetooth settings in system settings, which are conveniently near the top. And I looked, and then when I open it, like I am right now, it was turned off. And I thought, that's really odd. I didn't turn off my Bluetooth settings. I wouldn't do that. Why would I do that? And when I turned it on, it detected nothing. I thought, oh, that's not good.
Not good at all.
I closed system settings, and then I opened it again, and the Bluetooth switch had turned itself off again. I thought, that seems really bad.
It's not a good sign.
Is that software? What is it? So I went into the Apple menu, as you do, about this Mac. Now you have to, there's so many different things you have to do. Now you have to then go to the more information button, and then you have to scroll down in the system settings until you see system report.
Yeah.
So I did a system report, and I scrolled down to Bluetooth, and it says Bluetooth controller, and the address says null in all caps. And I thought, well,
no,
that can't be the right
address for you.
No, that cannot be the right answer. And so literally, I was doing this moments before you and I were
Are you sure
talk.
it's no? And maybe it's supposed to be N0. No, you think it's actually no. It says no.
It says null, and then the state, which is the one under it, the field called state, says off.
Yeah, no, that's
so that's all bad. And so this was literally right before, and I thought, well, that's not normal. But to check, of course, I asked you to check yours because we were just about to get on the call together. And of course, you have an address in there. So yes. I think I'm going to be taking another trip to the Apple store to replace my Bluetooth controller, because I'm pretty sure I have a new hardware issue. And I'm assuming that the Bluetooth controller is a separate part inside the Mac Studio. I thought I had replaced, or Apple had replaced, virtually everything in this Mac, but apparently not. There's another bad piece in it that needs to be fixed. And the reason I discovered this, and the reason it died, I guess, was these restarts. And the reason I was restarting was because I had another kind of gut-wrenching moment this morning when I was looking at an email about an app that's coming out next week, and it had a test flight link. I thought, I need to look at this because I think I'm going to probably write about it. So I clicked on the link. It opened. Test flight crashed on launch. I thought, test flight. So I reopened test flight, and it opened this time, but it had no betas in it except for the one I had clicked on. What? It had one. And I thought, oh no. So I looked in the settings, and it showed my Apple ID. Now I have a split Apple ID. I have an Apple ID for iCloud, and I have another one for media. And test flight uses your media one. And somehow test flight had switched over to my one that I use for iCloud. And I never had that happen. I have no idea why that was. So I went searching around. It actually fortunately says in the preferences where to go. You go into your iCloud settings in system settings, and it showed that it was, you go to the media section. It's called media and purchases, but it showed that it was using the correct email address, my Gmail account. I thought, well, that's weird. So I fiddled around in there a lot, kind of logging out, logging in, logging out, logging in there, logging in, logging out of the music app and the app store. And eventually I got it all working again. But it took a lot of signing in and out. And then I did a couple of restarts just to try to get everything to stick, which is when I discovered the Bluetooth problem. Now, one interesting discovery I made by somehow having my test flight Apple ID switched to my iCloud account, which had no test flights on it except for this one that I just downloaded today, is that test flight performs remarkably well if you have one beta. So I think I've been vindicated in my assumptions and my investigation in the article I wrote a few weeks ago about test flight, that it isn't designed to handle large quantities of betas. And that's not great. So I learned that today. I do now have my test flight working. I have some other iCloud issues that I've been struggling with, including a reminders app that has no reminders in it whatsoever. It's completely empty. And I logged out of iCloud and back in again. That didn't help. I have not gone to the full enchilada where you log out everywhere and log in to one device at a time, because that takes a really long time and I haven't had time to do that. And so yeah, I've got problems, Federico. I've got problems all over the place right now.
All of this sounds bad. Like all of it. That's the problem. Like you no longer have Bluetooth working, and test flight is logging you out and switching into a different account or not showing you betas, and you're having duplicate contacts and all sorts of Apple ID issues. Like it seems to me like that computer is cursed right now.
It kind of is. Yeah, the duplicate contacts is a whole nother thing, which I didn't even mention, because that I think goes back a long time, but from other iCloud issues I've had before and never properly fixed. And I don't know how much of it was caused from my recent problems or from legacy old problems, but I had 2,000 duplicates in my contacts that I used there's a tool inside the Contacts app to remove duplicates, but I had to run it like a dozen times in order for them to all disappear eventually. But eventually I got rid of all the duplicates. So that seems to be fixed. Reminders is still broken. Test flight seems to be fixed. And so I have these layers of iCloud and hardware issues. And the one that, first of all, the test flight one freaked me out, because literally that is absolutely necessary for the work we do. And I can't kind of be without test flight. Fortunately, it works perfectly fine, I think, still on my Air, so I could always fall back to that. But that's working again. And then, of course, the hardware issue is really disappointing, because it means another drive down to the Apple Store, which is not very close to where we live anymore. It's like a 45-minute drive.
They're either going to give you a loyalty card or they're going to hire you at this Apple Store. Like, you've been there, what, 4 or 5 times? This is going to be the 6th?
Yeah, it's been like 4 round trips.
This is going to be the fifth time at the Apple Store.
Yeah. So, it is what it is, I guess. It is what it is.
I'm so sorry. But so let me understand here. For the future, are you ready for another lightning strike?
I am.
Okay.
I am. I have, and this is my own. Look, I'm to blame for the surge hitting my computer, because I had the Ethernet connected directly into the wall, and I know better because I have a UPC, an uninterruptible power supply, UPS, not UPC, that is basically a big battery with a surge protector in it, and I had the Mac plugged into that surge protector, but it also takes an Ethernet cable into it and can protect against surges that way too. I plugged it directly into the wall, mainly because of trying to minimize clutter under my desk of all the Ethernet cables.
Should I buy a surge protector? Is that a thing that I need?
Yeah, you should. You really should teach you.
Is that but our building as a, oh God, what are they called? Like a lightning.
Like a lightning rod?
Yes, a lightning rod.
Yeah, well, and you're in a big modern building.
It's very modern. Yes.
And you're not on the top floor, I don't think, right?
No.
I mean,
sandwiched in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas, I mean, I'm exposed on most sides because I'm an end unit in a condo building. So but the lightning didn't hit our house. It hit somewhere very close by, but it didn't hit the house.
Sort of ran through the grid or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And now, that could happen to you. I mean, you've got like you said, though, you've got a big modern building that's serving a whole bunch of families. So it may be that there's kind of like almost surge protection built into the building itself. But I don't know. I would run some sort of surge protector somewhere.
All right.
Welcome back to another episode of App Stories. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is Federico Vidici. Hi, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Well, I'm doing okay, all things considered, because as we talked about in the pre-show, I am still having technical issues thanks to a lightning strike near my house, not that, like a month or so ago, which I've talked about here and there, and I'm tired of talking about, but I have discovered
things keep happening on John's poor computer.
Yeah. I think really it's a bit of a minor miracle that the computer worked at all after this lightning strike, because it seemed perfectly fine, but slowly but surely the thing's coming apart at the seams. If you're interested in learning more about that and how I'm dealing and troubleshooting with both hardware and the extra layer of iCloud issues that I discovered this week, thanks to, I think, restoring from a backup, you can join App Stories Plus, which is our extended version of App Stories that comes out a day early. It's ad-free, and it's in high bitrate audio. And you just go to appstories.plus to learn a little bit more about the show. And you can also get it if you can subscribe, of course, directly to App Stories Plus itself. You can also become a Club Premier member for Club Mac Stories and get it that way as well, which gives you everything that we do on Club Mac Stories as well. And those plans are described at plus.club. Federico, today we want to talk more about our wishes. We've got more and more wishes. We're getting towards, I guess this is the midpoint.
Never-ending supply of wishes.
There are a lot of OSs, and I think we're soon to have a new OS, which is why we're going to be doing a special on the OS that doesn't even officially exist
They keep
yet.
making new ones. That's the thing about operating systems. They keep making them. So, we keep having wishes. That's how it goes. Yes.
We're combining two today, though, because I think watchOS 10 and tvOS 17, yes, there are wishes, but there aren't enough of each to fill an entire episode. So we're gonna double up on the OSs today.
Yeah, this is going to be, I think, a lighter, more compact episode, because there's only so much you can wish for from an Apple Watch and from the Apple TV. And specifically with watchOS, I think it's useful to keep in mind the context of rumors are saying that Apple is working on a major redesign of watchOS 10. And given that information, like, we have wishes, but we're not here to discuss or share mock-ups or concepts of how we like the thing to look. But that being said, I do think we have a few wishes we definitely have more wishes for watchOS than we do for tvOS. And I mean, that's not a surprise, right? Because I think both of us, we mostly sit in front of our TVs largely to watch TV, which is I would say a simple task on its own, but we'll talk about that later. watchOS. Right. All right. Do you want to start? What you got for me for watchOS?
So I want to start with just like a really small thing that I noticed the other day, which is I really like how when you're charging your Apple Watch, once it's fully charged, you get an alert on your iPhone.
Yeah, it's nice.
Really it's nice to know, right? Why don't we get that on the Mac? I really would like to get that on the Mac too, because a lot of times I'm sitting here, I get up in the morning, I look at my watch, and I've been sleep tracking overnight, and it's maybe low. So I sit at my desk, I put it on the charger, and I start working. I start working on my Mac when the Mac is working, and I'd like to have that notification show up there as well, because a lot of times I'm not looking at my phone while I'm working at my desk. So yeah, I mean, I think that this is just one of those things that's been kind of left out of the system and needs to exist on the Mac. So I'm going to start with that little one.
Yeah, nice. Well, I'm going to talk about widgets, right? One of the things my wish, I guess, is a sort of a rethinking of the Apple Watch UI. Like as simple as that, like as a wish. Obviously, that's a very complicated task for Apple. But I don't know. I just feel like we're coming up on the 8th year of the Apple Watch. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Was it 2015?
Yeah, it's amazing how long it's been. I think 8 is right.
It's going to turn 10 in 2 years, which is not something I want to think about. But we're coming up on the 8th year of the Apple Watch, which is a long time. And by and large, we've gone so far, with the same Apple Watch design. And sure, in the first year, there was a bit of a reshuffling of the Apple Watch architecture. If you recall, watchOS was not called watchOS. That only happened with watchOS 2. It used to be called WatchKit. And the original Apple Watch had the glances UI, if you recall. And there was a different design for the dock. But everything else, I mean, the structure, the watch face, and the honeycomb of apps, later they added the list option, but like by and large the structure of the Apple Watch and the overall style and design has stayed the same, especially if you don't consider the first year, but then especially for the past 6 years and a half, almost 7 years. And here's another way to think about it. I'm gonna blow your mind with this, John. On the 7th year, iOS was redesigned.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And maybe on the 7th year, watchOS will be redesigned too.
Yeah. No, it makes sense to me.
It's the 7-year crisis.
Yeah. Look, there's been a lot of changes made under the hood for developers, but the actual design has stayed relatively the same, especially in the last 5 years or so. So I'm with you. I think we should have that. And I think the idea, the rumors point to some sort of widget system. And I've been thinking about it a lot because I do feel like it's a little too hard to get into the apps themselves. I mean, I know all you have to do is look at your watch face and hit the button once and, get to the honeycomb, but the honeycomb's hard to find things. And you know what? I would like to hit that button, that crown button, and have it open a card-like interface that's a little bit like the, a little bit like the dock interface, and allow me to move between cards that show kind of the core information for an app, whatever the developer thinks is most important, and maybe even allow me to swipe left and right from each of those cards to access other cards, give it kind of a up and down and left and right sort of UI so that you can get to those things that way.
I said 7-year crisis, and typically we talk about these American expressions on other podcasts on Wind, but I just find this fascinating. You folks in America call it the 7-year itch.
Yes, I knew exactly what you meant, even though you didn't say it the way I would.
Yeah, but we in Italy we say the 7-year crisis, 7-year itch. Okay, this is an interesting expression. All right,
we'll have to follow up on that one on Mac Stories Unwind next week.
Yeah, cool. So let's see. I agree on everything you said about using the crown, and I just think it's exciting to think about a watchOS UI that tries something different, maybe more dynamic, maybe more designed around the idea of this is a device where you want to have quick interactions, which really, if you think about it, that's where glances were supposed to do. Like we're supposed to come in, like the idea of you're wearing a watch, you don't need to like follow the iPhone metaphor or the iPhone paradigm, if you will, of like you have a lock screen, which would be the watch face, and then you go to the home screen and then you open the app. What if the whole experience was a bit more dynamic, was a bit more, quick and fast and contextualized maybe? But obviously the first Apple Watch didn't have the technology to make that happen in a really like stable and fast type of experience.
That's true. And I think that was one of the problems with glances is that the data loaded fairly
Yeah.
slowly in them. And I assume one reason it was abandoned. And I think what you're getting at is, if glances or these widgets or whatever you want to call them are surfaced a little more easily, I think it actually will open up more watch faces to more people, because I think one of the reasons I use a utility watch face, I think it's the utility watch face, whatever it is, the one with all the little complications on it, that I've never switched away from it, because the reality is I want all that information close up. It's the modular is what it is. And if I was able to get to some of that information more quickly and easily through a widget system, I might be willing to try out some more of the watch faces that Apple's made. It's just that I use the modular because it provides the most data in the best organized way for me still.
I want to talk about shortcuts on the Apple Watch. I have a few wishes for shortcuts. First of all, and this is a general trend, I would just love to have a more stable and really a faster experience with running shortcuts on the Apple Watch.
Yeah,
the
it's
whole
pretty
thing
limited
is
still.
The whole thing is very limited and kind of clunky. It's clunky in how you need to sync your shortcuts from the iPhone, and you got to say, I want to make this available on the Apple Watch, which I understand as a setting, but so many times that setting does nothing until you reboot your phone, and then your shortcuts appear on the watch.
Yeah, it takes a long time.
It takes a long time for that toggle should be immediate. When I run a shortcut, I just feel like it takes so much to execute on the Apple Watch. And I understand that the Apple Watch does not have the same chip than an iPhone. Hey, maybe that explains the rumor why Apple wants to have a brand new system on a chip in the next Apple Watch. I would actually like that. But one of the things that really slows down the experience, I think, is also the confirmation step. So every single time you want to run a shortcut on the Apple Watch, and if you run it from a complication, as I think, I would bet that most shortcuts users who also happen to be Apple Watch owners are using the shortcuts complication on their watch faces. Because if you love shortcuts, you want to have the fastest possible access to your shortcuts. And the watch face is the only place where you can put them. So when you tap on an icon for a shortcut in a complication, every single time you need to confirm that you want to run that shortcut. And I just wish it was possible to skip that confirmation step, or to just manually go in and say, I, the user, hereby declare that I'm okay with running the shortcut automatically. Like, give me a way to disable that extra step every single time. And lastly, the shortcuts need to be faster when running in Siri. That is also a problem with shortcuts on iOS. I think I could use a bit of a tune-up in the whole Siri area when it comes to running your shortcuts in Siri. But I also would love to see more compatibility with actions that are supported in shortcuts on iOS that are not available in shortcuts on the Apple Watch. For example, recently, John and I wrote about how we wanted to do a few things with file management, and like doing things like appending some text to a note in iCloud Drive. None of that works in shortcuts on the Apple Watch. The Dropbox actions, which are built into shortcuts, they do not work on the Apple Watch. We had to come up with a workaround based on using tools like IFTTT and Zapier to run web automations on the Apple Watch, because that's the only way to make a web request, when all you need to do is modify a text file in iCloud Drive or Dropbox. And that's just one example. There are plenty of other actions that do not work on the Apple Watch. Even actions that, I'm not saying that you should be able to control your Mac Windows from an Apple Watch. Some actions do not make any sense on an Apple Watch, but some of them do, and they don't work at the moment. And I think they really should.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that just needs to be kind of reevaluated now that we've got more actions available in iOS and macOS as well. I want to talk to you a little bit about the action button on the Apple Watch Ultra, because I feel like it's really underutilized at this point. And, we've talked about this in the past, but I would really like to have a contextual action for that button that I can set myself. And the way I think about it is kind of as an analog to keyboard shortcuts. If I'm on my watch face, I should have a pre-programmed action that I can run like I do now. I've got a shortcut that appends to a text file, associated with the action button now. But if I'm in a different app, if I've actually opened an app like Carrot Weather, for instance, maybe that button should show me my radar. Or if I'm in Things, it should start a new task. I think it feels like there should be at least, it should act as a shortcut for the app that it's in, and then also have kind of a global shortcut when you're actually not using an app. And I'd also like to go even a step further and have a double click action, expand the gestures for this button. There's no reason why it shouldn't be able to do something else if you double press it.
Yeah, those are some nice ideas. I agree. I would love to have, as a recent Apple Watch Ultra switcher, I would love to have more flexibility there. You have some interesting ideas, John. Before we move on to tvOS, you have some interesting ideas for fitness that I would like to talk about. What's this idea that you have for artificial intelligence and fitness?
Yeah, I've been thinking about it a little bit because I've really enjoyed using Gentler Streaks, which is kind of a low-key fitness app that looks at a bunch of data that's collected by your watch and gives you a sense of whether you're, on the right path. And it gives you some leeway because it knows, some days you don't have time to exercise, sometimes you do. And it's really done, I think, for me, a very good job of keeping me on track in the sense that, maybe I have a day or two where I don't do as much, but then I see where I am on kind of their graph. And I think, I really need to get out today. And I don't know, I found it a lot more effective than chasing rings with Apple's system. And so that got me thinking that maybe what we need is some kind of AI coach built into the fitness app on the watch and on iOS for that matter, that kind of looks more deeply at your data. Because, all this data is on your watch and on your iPhone. It tells you, it knows how many hours you slept if you're sleep tracking. It knows, your health, your heart rate and your respiratory rate and all these different pieces, which Gentler Streaks uses to kind of give you a sense for whether you should take it easy on a particular day. Because, for instance, if I don't get enough sleep, or for some reason it's determined that my heart rate was elevated or something at night, it'll say, maybe you're a little worn out. You should think about taking it easy today. I'd like to see Apple do some of that, and then maybe extend it to the actual workouts and things, and say, you went out for a run yesterday and you really pushed it. Maybe today you should do like a mindful meditation, or you should do like some stretching exercises or yoga or something that maybe is geared to be a little bit easier on your body than pounding out on the pavement. So, I mean, that's something I'd love to see them do a little bit more of. And there's been some, I think, rumors that might be coming with a headset as well, and I think it would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I love this idea. Gentler Streaks is one of the apps that are on my John list of things to try, as I wrote about in Mac Stories Weekly last Friday. The last thing I will share about sort of fitness, health related stuff, I really wish that Apple would just how do you guys say in America? I'm sorry, but like today, these expressions are coming to me. Is bite the bullet an expression?
Yeah, it is.
What does it mean? It doesn't mean what I think it means.
Just do it.
Yeah, perfect. Yes. So I wish that Apple would just bite the bullet and tell me what some health statistics mean. Like, sometimes you get those notifications and it's like your resting heart rate is down, and I'm like, wait, is that good? What does it mean? Like, is it good? Is it bad? Should I go talk to somebody? Like, I just wish that, and this happens for all kinds of stats, all kinds of categories. Like, I wish that they would just do it and tell me, hey, look at this, buddy. This is, all things considered, this is probably not great. You should go talk to someone, like in plain English, like that. Instead, you just get those numbers. They're up or they're down. They're considered like, okay, like what does it mean?
I'll tell you why I think that is. I think that that's because the lawyers are telling them that
I know, right?
if
I
you're
know.
giving people medical advice, this is a medical device and has to be approved by various regulatory bodies all around the world, right?
Well, I mean, you could probably find, some a way with language, to be
it's
like,
possible.
According to some people, these kind of numbers would suggest, like, you could phrase it like that, maybe. I don't know.
No, I think it can be done. And Gentler Streaks kind of does that. I mean, it basically will say, it's not really committing to saying, oh, you know what,
I'm really a doctor and you're doing bad. Like,
right. You're worn out. Your heart rate is way too high, buddy. You need to go to the ER now. It just says, you're outside your normal ranges. You might want to kind of pay attention to how you feel and your body and think about that when you decide what you're going to do today.
Yeah. All right, let's talk tvOS. I'm gonna tell you. So tvOS coming up on version 17 because they are in lockstep with iOS. I have two wishes, John, for tvOS. Okay. I'm sorry, you seem to have more than I do. Really, I only have two. The first one, I would love to have a system-wide floating panel for song lyrics. For Apple Music lyrics.
That's a good one, yeah.
This is the kind of thing that I actually would love to have everywhere, especially on macOS. If only the lyrics sidebar alone in the music app for Mac could be like torn away from the app and sort of pinned as a floating window on your Mac, like just the lyrics. But that's also what I want on tvOS. Like sometimes I want to, maybe like keep a song going, read the lyrics, but then at the same time, I don't know, do something else, like, keep a Twitch stream in the background, or, go take a look at a photo album that I have on my iCloud account, or play a game or whatever. Like, I don't know, but just a way to keep the lyrics there, I think would be super nice. And the second thing, I learned this expression from Mike and Jason on the Upgrade podcast, the Quadbox feature. So the Quadbox feature, I think is a feature of 16.5. Basically, this would be grid view for watching up to 4 video streams at once. Hence the name Quadbox. And you may be wondering, why would you want to, you're not an air traffic controller. Why would you want to look at 4 video streams at once?
Teachy's a big sports fan, that's why.
Turns out that a lot of sports people do. A lot of sports people want to watch multiple games at once. And supposedly, allegedly, according to Jason Snell, it's really well done. And you can switch between videos, and the audio changes as you move your focus from one video to another. But I'm not here to talk about sports. I'm here to say that I want to have a generalized Quadbox feature for all kinds of videos. Like sometimes I want to have multiple Twitch streams going at the same time.
That makes sense, yeah.
Or, hey, I don't know, maybe I'm weird. Maybe I want to watch 2 YouTube videos at the same time and, optimize my time like that. There's people who listen to podcasts at 3x. I mean, surely I can switch between 3 YouTube videos. Like, for example, imagine that a new iPhone comes out or a new iPad comes out, and there are 3 unboxing videos, right? There's iJustine, there's MKBHD, and I don't know, name a third YouTuber, John.
Oh, Quinn Nelson.
Quinn Nelson. Good job. Great pick. Let's say that, like, I want to switch between the 3 of them, and the audio moves between them. I should be able to do that. So Quadbox, but for non-sports use cases. That's my pitch.
All right. I can go for that. I think a Quadbox is a good idea, and I do think there's a lot of stuff in tvOS. I have similar wishes to you that kind of extend existing things, I guess, in a new way on tvOS. I mean, I think the big one for me though is I would really like to see Apple integrate music in a new way. I mean, we've talked about this a little bit in the past. They started this I think it's kind of a weird channel on Apple TV that is just music, right? It's just music videos, but it was like a traditional cable TV channel in that it wasn't like you weren't like searching for music videos and playing the ones you wanted to watch. It would just play them like old school MTV one after the other. And it was whoever was, doing the programming for this channel, picking what the songs were going to be. And that's fine, but it wasn't really tuned to anyone in particular's taste. And Apple has all this information about what we play on our devices. I would like to see a music video channel that is tuned to what I like. And we've criticized some of the algorithmic stuff in the past that Apple does. It's not always the best, but I think it would certainly be better than just kind of a generic stream of whatever happens to be popular in the world at a time, because you'd be more likely to see what you enjoy. So I'd like to see that, but I'd also like to see more, I guess, event programming on Apple TV, and particularly in TV Plus, that's music, concerts, live concerts. And this is the kind of thing that I think would tie in really well with a headset down the road, which, isn't exactly tvOS. We can talk about it then, but I'd like to have the ability to watch some of these bands that I love. And when I went to prepare for this episode, I went and looked on the Apple TV, and it does seem that right now that 24/7 music channel has been changed to a degree to just show some live concerts, but it's the same kind of thing. It's just you turn it on and it's in the middle of some concert and you don't even know who it is, because they don't really have any information like right on the screen at all times showing you who it is. You can probably go into the control center or something and find it, but it's just kind of like an afterthought, I think. And I think there's a lot more that could be done with music. So that's one of my wishes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a surprise final one.
Oh, you do?
I want to have Stage Manager on tvOS. No. I'm kidding.
What are you doing? What are you doing to me, Federico? Sure you do. It's not good enough for your iPad, but you're going to use your Siri remote to flip between channels on the sidebar.
Yeah. Yes, on the strip interior. No, but I wanted to mention though, because I use my Apple TV as a HomeKit hub. Yeah. I wanted to mention a couple of things about HomeKit. Most of my wishes are about automations and things that I cannot do in the Home app itself. And I'm going to give you a list of things that I cannot do that I would like to do.
All right.
This is, I guess, would require a more general rethinking of Siri's intelligence. But I should be able to talk to Siri like a normal person and issue multiple sort of chain commands all in one. For example, turn on the kitchen light and turn off the entrance one. Or turn on the kitchen and the living room and dim the bedroom. Like, I should be able to have a sentence like that. And a person would understand. If I had a butler in my home, the butler would understand, this kind of command. But I do not have a butler. It should be Siri that does this, right?
Right.
And it cannot do that. So I really love to have that sort of natural language support for HomeKit requests. I would love to have automation triggers based on the level of brightness of my lights. This is not possible. I would love to put together automations that are like, if the brightness level of this light is above 70%, something happens. And it's up to me to decide what happens. But I would love to put together some automations based on the level of brightness level of lights.
Or also something that says, turn the lights on and bring them from 10% to 100% over 45 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, like a time span, basically, where you need to do this gradually. Yes. And speaking of gradual stuff, one of the things I cannot do in the Home app, that is true on every platform and on tvOS, I cannot select gradients for my light strip that is compatible with HomeKit. It's a Philips Hue Play something gradient light strip. And if I want to control the gradient, as in it literally there's a gradient in the back of my TV, like the light strip, it starts and it's blue and then it's purple and then it's red and then it's yellow at the other end. Like you can put together, I believe you can mix and match up to 4 colors, but this type of accessory is not supported in HomeKit. And I know that this is not tvOS related, but the Apple TV is a HomeKit hub, and as part of my general HomeKit wishes, support for this type of accessory, like gradient-based lights should be something. Like right now, I'm using the Hue app, whereas I would just prefer to use the Home app, or again, ask Siri, like, "Hey Siri, make the back of the TV, a yellow-orange gradient," and that should work.
Yeah, that would be really nice. That would be really nice. I think the last thing a couple of things I would mention is I feel like the homepage for tvOS just gets kind of cluttered. I mean, I've got the video apps that I use regularly organized at the top of the grid, but then there's a whole bunch of games that I'm not really sure why they're in there anymore, and some old apps that I included and then never did anything with. And it's just too clunky to kind of go through and manage those and delete them all at once yourself. There's no way to really organize them into folders or anything like that. I guess I'd like a way to do that on my phone, maybe, where it's easy, kind of like the way CarPlay works, where you can go into settings and you can rearrange what's going to be on your CarPlay screen on your phone in your home without having to do it in your car, but be able to do that with tvOS in a way. That would be kind of cool. Yeah. The other thing is I would like to see a queuing system that's a little bit like the playlist queuing system or the podcast queuing system that you and I have talked about, which is I don't really want Apple telling me what's in my next queue. I just want to have a list that I create myself and maybe organizes them by here's the most recent to the least recent. And actually lets me go in and edit it too, because I know, for instance, like if I go to my up next queue and I scroll way to the right, there's some shows in there that we abandoned months ago. And why are those still in there? I don't really want them in there, but I don't really have a good way to. I mean, I guess I could go into the show itself and turn off the checkbox for up next, but it shouldn't require me to do that many steps in order just to get something out of the list that's on my home screen. So that is, I guess those are my wishes, as well as, okay, I got one more for you, Federico.
One more.
Related to up next. Last one. Let me put YouTube, Twitch, and channels, the app channels.
Don't we all have this wish? Yeah.
Right? Put all that kind of content in the up next, not just kind of like and traditional Netflix, TV.
But hey, a man can dream, right?
Yeah, well, that's up to them, I guess, really. Yeah. But yeah, there's other kinds of content that, whether it's YouTube, Twitch, or even over-the-air stuff through an app like channels that would be nice to include in your up next, but you can't do that either.
Hey, John, I got a pitch for you.
What's that?
Before we wrap up, are you ready? I'm gonna blow your mind for the second time today.
All right.
Hear me out. This is a safe space, okay?
All right.
Up next for Safari.
Interesting.
Right? And that's the new reading list. And it shows you recommendations from
See, there you go. That's the galaxy brain part right there. You blew my mind when you said it's replacing.
It shows you recommendations from your reading list, from shared with you, and popular articles from Apple News. Oh gosh, that sounds like a nightmare. Why did I say this? I'm sorry.
I don't know. Sorry. Hey, speaking of Safari though, Federico, one thing that drives me bananas on the iPad that we didn't mention when we talked about iPad OS is tapping into the address bar and triggering the windowing button at the top of the iPad. I don't know. Do you do it? I do it all the time. Yeah. I think it's just my mind goes to the middle of the screen where that button is, and I often just end up triggering the button instead of tapping into the address bar.
Yeah.
All right, Federico. Well, that's a good episode. We are going to cover Mac OS next week, so stay tuned for that. It's going to be a good one. We're both on MacStories.net. You can find us writing there as well as on Club Mac Stories. You can find us on Mastodon too. Just go to Viticci.MacStories.net to follow Federico and JohnVorhees.MacStories.net to follow me. We're also on Instagram, where Federico is at Viticci. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees. JOHNVOORHWS. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.